Leaders from around the world are gathering in France to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the massive invasion of Normandy during World War II. Many of those who witnessed the events of June 6, 1944 are returning to the historic beaches to pay tribute to the 10,000 Allied troops killed there that day. About 1 million American World War II vets are still living, but it's estimated that by 2036 there will be no one left who can share firsthand accounts of that conflict. WGBH's Elizabeth Ross recently met with a local veteran who's taking a unique approach to teaching younger generations about what he witnessed 70 years ago.
Charles Bud Dacey has lived in Winthrop his entire life. He remembers swimming at this beach as a little boy. But sometimes when Dacey looks out to the horizon, his memories take him back to a different beach.
It was so bad that they assumed that a lot of the guys, if we landed, they'd drowned, and it'd be very difficult for them to get ashore.
Dacey was a 19-year-old sailor when he and more than 150,000 Allied troops crossed the English Channel on D-Day.
This is the greatest amphibious operation in military history.
Dacey served as a gunner's mate aboard the LST-344, a landing ship loaded down with Sherman tanks, jeeps, and men.
We had to anchor off of Normandy, and it was so rough that I can remember we never shut the engines off.
The weather was bad, and the fighting was intense.
I can remember shells landing all around us, and I thought it was our guys that were shooting at the Germans, and some of the guys said, "Stupid, it's the Germans shooting at us."
These days, Dacey reminisces about the war with other veterans at the Winthrop Center Cafe. They're honored here on the cafe's wall of heroes. But Dacey says the real heroes are those who died at Normandy.
I don't want the kids to forget what they did. It's nice to know what we did too, but those guys, the people who are still over there, they gave their lives.
And that's why Dacey created his D-Day in a box. It's part of a presentation he gives at schools and museums. It includes a Nazi medal from a German prisoner captured at Normandy, and dozens of pieces that he and his wife made by hand for a 3D model of the invasion of Omaha Beach.
These are my German guns. This is an orange cap from a simply orange bottle, and then I drill a hole and I put these in it. And this is the top where the Germans looked out.
Following his D-Day presentation, Dacey sometimes gives out tiny bags of sand. He collected it during an emotional trip back to Normandy a few years ago.
So I said, I'm getting in the water, and I took my shoes off and walked down the beach, and that's when I got the sand.
He also paid tribute, as he puts it, to the guys still over there, those buried at the American cemetery overlooking Omaha Beach, where he took this picture. He never gives a presentation without it. Elizabeth Ross, WGBH News.
D-Day in a Box will be on display at the Wenham Museum next week. Carolyn Nenart is the museum's education director. Welcome to Greater Boston, Carolyn.
Thank you.
There's nothing like hearing history from the eyes of somebody who was there, though, as opposed to going through a history and reading encapsulations.
Correct. That's what Bud will be at the museum in July, so he can greet all of our visitors to tell his story to those children and adults. And the best part, I think, is when another veteran comes forward and the two of them can just talk and connect and relive what they had over there. And then if there's a young child, a 10-year-old girl or boy, listening in, they get to hear this story from these two men that were there.
Is it ancient history to young children? Is it even on their landscape at all?
It's definitely on their radar. They will learn about it in school. It might be the last thing they're going to learn about in the school year, but it does come forefront. There's usually a large section in most textbooks regarding World War II.
All right, let's bring Bill Keeler into discussion. He's an international relations professor at Boston University, and he attended the 50th anniversary of D-Day Memorial in Normandy, France. Tell us what that was like. I remember my dad went to that too 20 years ago. I can't believe that's 20 already, but what was the 50th like?
It was an extraordinary experience. There were a number of veterans with me. I was doing a tour for the Smithsonian Institution. There were half a dozen veterans of the landing there, and in every one of their cases, this was the first time they'd returned, 50 years after their experience. And I remember walking the ridge above Omaha Beach with a couple of them, and you could see their eyes getting moist, and they were thinking, obviously, about their comrades who perished on the beach. Sad to say, 20 years later, there aren't a lot of them left. So we really, in that experience, got a sense of what it was like to be on that beach, landing and getting shot at.
Tell us, just in terms of perspective, because this was a surprise attack, and that beach, of course, the Nazis had really done some clever engineering with the hedgerows and the ditches, and so they were positioned, they were waiting, but they weren't necessarily sure that it was going to be that landing place.
That's right. The Eisenhower plan was to do a feint to make them think that the landing was going to take place in Calais, which is closer to the British Isles, and there were a lot of rubber tanks and so forth that they set up as attempts to defeat them, to fool them. And also there was a lot of fake messages being sent and so forth. So they really thought that the landing was going to come much further north, and in fact it came in the lower basin of Normandy, and that came as a surprise.
You think about all the veterans of wars there are now, and there have been many since World War II. But for some reason, not just in America but worldwide, they hold a special place. And some people resent that. How do you put that in perspective?
Well, I know at the museum when we have the Military History Day, we try to honor all the soldiers. Starting back, we have reenactors that come dressed as Civil War, both North and South, and we have the World War I and World War II, and even a few years ago we had someone from the Afghan War, an American soldier, and he gave a talk as well, so people got to see what it was like today, not only reflecting back on the World War II.
Of course, Tom Brokaw wrote the book The Greatest Generation and was largely built around World War II. I mean, was it?
That's right. It was really the last, quote, good war, to use Studs Terkel term, and the wars since then have been much more problematic. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, whereas no one questions the goal, the mission of those soldiers that landed on Omaha Beach. They were fighting a terrible Nazi regime. And so I think there's just universal celebration for this.
What kind of questions do the kids ask?
A lot of times, were you scared?
Oh.
What was it like? What did you get to eat?
Yeah.
Did you get things from home? Because they hear about care packages being sent. What did you need? Did you meet a German? What were they like? Just those kind of almost everyday kind of discussions. Did you have to march? Did you have target practice? And some of them might seem kind of silly to an adult looking at it, but so how wet did you get when you landed on Omaha Beach? What was it like? So they really
Those are all good questions.
They want to know the nuts and bolts of
and
what it was like that day when, like Bud had said in his piece, what it was like coming on board, getting off the ship and walking up the beach.
One of the things that struck us was something that Bill that Mr. Dacey said was that the people or the men still there. I mean, he thinks of that incredible sight in Normandy of the white grave markers as being the guys still there.
Yeah, it's an emotional experience. Of course, Saving Private Ryan sort of made that famous for people who have never been there. And I wanted to put in a plug, if I may, for a wonderful museum in the city of Caen, C-A-E-N, not Cannes, that's where the film festival is. Just out beyond the landing breaches, they have a wonderful exhibition, a permanent exhibition, not only of World War I, but they go back to World War II, but they go back to World War I. I was a consultant in that museum, and it's a must-see if you happen to visit the landing beaches. It's called the Memorial Museum in Caen.
Great. Well, thanks for that bit of information, Bill Keeler and, Carolyn Nenhart. Thank you so much.